There's there's a specific breed of feudalists who emerged onto the scene in the late 19th century, who created a specific strain of feudal socialism. So not all socialism is feudalism, but this particular grouping in here, of course, I'm referring to the Fabian Society, the British imperial mystics who often colluded with various theosophists as well in secret societies back in the 1870s, 1880s, who reorganized their systems. They nominally called themselves socialists, but they all hated humanity. They all wanted less humans, and one of the techniques that were hit upon was to promote a severing of the mind from the heart. So that's always been a problem for humanity, not knowing how the two aspects balance. That's always been an issue, and oligarchies have always been able to play people who are imbalanced in both sides to create, overly logical tyrants or overly emotional mob idiots who are played by
Yeah,
tyrants, and
yeah,
that's always been used from the days back in Babylon. So these creatures promoted and they fused certain concepts that had emerged with Freud, Sigmund Freud, certain concepts that had emerged with Max Weber, a sociologist, as well. And Edward Bernays was some of his thoughts on social engineering, making the false appear true to get certain effects where the people have the illusion that they have liberty, but none of the actuality. So they fused a lot of this stuff together with a bit of Marxism as well, and they created what was became known as the Frankfurt School. It occurred in the wake of, or under the helm of George Lukács, who was the Hungarian cultural minister, somebody who saw within the Bolshevik Revolution a chance to create a new type of human, devoid of all of the contagion of our moral values that had been, and family units and belief in God. That could all be we could be liberated from that with that break, and a new type of human could be constructed more conducive to a system of feudalism effectively, though he wouldn't say it that way. He'd say it's for our liberty. And that's what was absorbed by the CIA when they were created by MI6 and a bunch of British fifth columnists who had been embedded inside the United States for many generations. So they finally, this is what killed many American presidents, was always this parasite growing, cultivated by London, and always trying to undermine America from within. So at a certain point after World War II, they created a new intelligence agency with the help of the British called the CIA, and that then worked with the Rockefeller Foundation, a variety of these other philanthropic organizations that had been pouring immense amount of money into reforming science practice, science education, artistic education, humanities. Everything was being reformed under these philanthropic agencies who didn't really, I mean, they were not really American in their essence. They were always tools of empire.
yeah,
Um, and the Congress for Cultural Freedom, as you pointed out from that post that I put forth, was a CIA organization that was created after World War II that brought in the Frankfurt School ideologues, Theodore Adorno, the whole Lukács gang, Sidney Hook. Many of them were former Trotskyists. Interestingly enough, James Burnham was a former Trotskyist, who was sort of what they wanted to be, what dominated the Bolshevik Revolution. They wanted Trotsky and his vanguard of cultists to be the forever dictators of Russia. They didn't get that. So certain things. That's why I said at the beginning. I look at where do plans for the New World Order break down? Where because the oligarchy wants to project an image of deity, of being like unquestionable gods who every time they want something, they get it. Don't bother resisting, right? If you're awake to the fact that there are conspiracies, that's what they want in your mind. It's
yeah,
very defeatist. And so I like looking at things. Well, why did the Trotskyists fail? Why did they have to? Why did they get purged from Russia? Not to say that there were bad ones who stayed behind, like there were bad Americans who stayed behind acting like patriots after the American Revolution in 1776, but they were always loyal to the British overlords and the old mystery cults across the ocean. However, similar
yeah,
thing in Russia too. And they became absorbed, they became the founders of the neoconservative movement, and they created a new artistic movement around pouring CIA money into abstract art, atonalist music, nihilistic literature that
mhm,
would then be infused into the educational curriculum of especially baby boomers who are
Yeah.
they've been through a lot of trauma, their parents have been through trauma. The kids were gonna go through a lot of trauma being told that every day is nuclear war day. So it created a very, a
The
climate of
horror movies, yeah. You mentioned in a different podcast, yeah, the horror movies that I remember
mm,
in my childhood, like when I was 10 or so, and you also saw
mm,
quite early horror movies. You could see them. You could see them also. Like we had like video recorders now, and then if it
yeah,
showed at 10, you just made the recording, and then you could
yeah,
see it the next day. And I was fascinated, but I also remember like what's the name again? The Body Snatchers is one of the
yeah,
horror movies that
yeah,
it kind of describes this soulless society when the aliens come, and kind of it changes the physicality, the bodies don't change, but
yeah,
somehow the aliens kind of suck the soul, and everyone just is a robot. And then at the
yeah.
end, one guy is left, and then he says, oh, maybe so someone who's we used to be friends but been sucked yet.
Yeah.
And then I just like that's the ending kind of. It's like it ends with like a shock moment, basically.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, it's like it's a shock therapy. I mean,
Yeah.
anybody going through that, they're being traumatized by design. So there
Hmm.
are very important insights that, yeah, people take this for granted. They're like, yeah, of course we have horror movies. It's just a genre that we have in our society that just emerged naturally. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, if you look into the origins of these things, it did not emerge naturally. It came out of years of research using under Tavistock, MK Ultra, psychiatrists looking at the effects of trauma, of shell shock, of
Hmm.
war veterans in World War One, World War Two, the Vietnam War, and they took this as scientific research that they then fed into the crafting of new types of cultural behavior, both death metal, heavy metal, the horror movie genre, to create degrees of similar types of trauma in their target audience that they wanted to be schismed and split from their integrated selves. That
Hmm.
was thought through, and there's a lot of hardcore Satanists tied to Aleister Crowley, that are behind the growth of this thing that is, yeah, just it's everywhere today, right? It's just we just passed Halloween, and every cinema was promoting, and Netflix and Amazon promoting things that kids are watching, which is it is parents might think, oh, it's just entertainment. My kids know that this is not real. No, there's deeper effects into the subconscious, into the psyche, that are having very bad effects, which will resonate if it's not dealt with
Hmm.
quickly, that will
Also,
affect
also,
them
also
later on in
a
life.
porn movie, if you watch it too early, or even if you watch it also when you're still an adult and so,
Arguably,
it's
eh, like,
also traumatizing or desensitizing. It creates this false image of orgasm and what is turning
mm,
us on.
mm.
It's taking us away from our true self, of discovering our individuality.
No, it's a good point, man. I mean, yeah, because it's one could say, yeah, like we're kids all have access to porn now, but at what age is porn good? And no, if you think about it, it's like no, there's certain things that human beings have as a sense of the sacred. Life is sacred, the family is sacred. There's certain
Mhm.
things that are very important to develop a mature sense of being and judgment, right? As far as internal standards we have to hold onto to keep ourselves growing, getting better, helping others get better, intervening on things that are wrong around us. We have to have internal standards that are tied to the sacred. And so when you normalize murder, death of innocence, sex without love or purpose, when you normalize these things, which is, again, if you look at Theodore Adorno, the great philosopher of musicology, who played a role in the Congress for Cultural Freedom, um, he's a very explicit in his writings that the formula is eros is freedom. He says that Soviet, and in the Cold War, the Soviet artistic aesthetical tastes are tied to a tyranny and cold rigidity of reason. of logic that's tyrannical. And so
Mhm.
they oversimplify what is reason and art, saying that that's all just regimented, soulless communism. And he says, well, thus the art and aesthetical sensibilities of democracy will be eros, where we don't have a tyranny of logic, where everybody is free to be everything they want to be and feel what they want to feel. And he also says in that same essay that ultimately necrophilia is the last perversity of style, that that's the ultimate destination of democratic eroticism, which
Mm.
is his ideal to strive towards, is necrophilia. And he's
Wow.
like, that's where we've achieved what we want. And it's like, this guy is at the heart of today's academic teaching of musicology in all of the European and North American domains.
Yeah.
This guy's everywhere.
It's somehow this, I don't know when it started, 50s, 60s, surely 70s, and the universities, you only had liberals left, or
Yeah.
they took the institutions. Also, in politics, they have a majority, also with the Green Party. And now I also probably, am I wrong seeing you more on the conservative side, but not a total Trump supporter, or so, not in that, but in Canada, for example, who do you support, a politician?
Mhm.